Okay, Sanjay, I feel like we've been rudely stopped in the middle of an amazing conversation because we forgot we were going live on Facebook. So apologies for having to stop our incredibly interesting conversation. It's good to see you, mate. It's good to see you. For those who don't know what these meetings, conversations, whatever they are, they're really whatever they are. It's a chance for me to bring, if you're watching this, you into a conversation, really a conversation with people I cherish and love, or who I've been working with for a long period of time, or whose teachings I really resonate with. And today I am presenting Sanjay, who's really more of a friend, if I'm honest. Me and Sanjay, we've known each other, I think, more than 20 years, I'd say. And yeah, that's probably about right, isn't it? And I think we first met 20 years ago when we were both involved in a program taking meditation, group singing, storytelling into schools, generally what you would call schools in troublesome areas where there was high crime rates and that kind of stuff. And so we were trying to introduce into the national curriculum, even at the time, we were trying to introduce these programs of meditation and storytelling and personal development for a wide range of different age groups of children. And that's where we first met and kind of got on. And it's, I didn't tell you this, but one of the interesting things about this conversation is, I mean, we're doing this as much for a catch-up as anything, because we haven't had a deep chat since, we had a little catch-up the other day around this for quite a few years. We kind of skirt past each other on each other's things now and again on Facebook. But the weird thing I was going to mention to you is, like, I think it was a few days ago, and I was thinking, I'd really like to have a chat with Sanjay on this podcast thing that I'm doing. And as I'm thinking, oh, that might be a nice idea. You liked one of my posts in that moment. It popped up on my phone. And it's not like we spend every day or every week liking each other's posts. It's, now and again, we'll just every few months. So it was kind of, oh, okay, this, I listen to those kind of coincidences, Definitely. So either way, mate, it's so good to have you here. I kind of call this Karma Yoga, but I was kind of discussing with you, I didn't really know what to say about this, because we both follow what I would call a path of Bhakti, which is loosely is a devotional path. And we both follow a karmic yoga path, really. We were kind of just getting to the conversation, really. I was saying it's quite interesting. I think, would you consider yourself to be Hindu?
Yeah, that's if I had to fill on the, census thing, I had to tick a box. So yeah, Hindu was the box I ticked, yeah.
Do you remember last time round they said if over so many thousand people said they were Jedi, they'd have to add that to the box, so...
Oh, yeah. Should have gone for Jedi, but no.
And what we were talking about, what I really want to maybe have a chat about today, Sanjay, is your path. Your path is, we were saying, like, it's a Western phenomenon I see quite a lot, that I'm a part of, that we believe that, okay, we're going to have this spiritual awakening, and we're going to use the law of attraction to become a multimillionaire. We're going to meet our twin flame. We're going to have crystal children. We're going to, we're going to develop extra sensory powers and all this kind of stuff. And that's what the spiritual path is. But then it's an interesting phenomenon, because a lot of the Hindu guys I met in India, they weren't fixated with any of that. They were just happy to lead an everyday life, doing, well, not an everyday life, but their life, doing whatever job they were doing. And really behind all that was the spirituality. The spirituality is, how do I interact with people at work? What is my level of surrender in the life that I'm living? How can I just live an everyday life in harmony with what we could call divinity, the light, the true nature, whatever label or pointer we want to give to that. And so I suppose I'd like I realize now you were kind of late coming to the party, and in the way that I was. It's not like you grew up a devout Hindu, and yours was a kind of a later blossoming. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about that to get us going, that would be great. How did you come to this spiritual path?
Yeah, sure. Kind of my recollection of it all is when I was young. I'd go to the temple with mum and dad because that's what you do. But I didn't really fully understand what it was all about, and I would have called myself a Hindu, but not a practicing Hindu, if that makes sense. So I didn't really feel like I was doing anything. And then went through uni, and then still, I think just after uni, I got a job with a company up in Teesside. And when I was up there, it was like we were put in a hotel for a few weeks till we found somewhere. And then I was looking at, there was another friend of mine who was up there as well, and we were looking to buy a house. And he bought a house, and I moved in with him as his lodger. But I was just thinking, is this really it? Is this what life is about? You kind of, get a job, buy a house, find someone, get married, and then is that it? It just felt like a bit empty, for want of a better word. I remember having that thought, but I just kind of brushed it to one side. And then after a year there, I then moved back home into Cheshire. And then that's when I think different things started happening. Maybe when I was last year at uni, I was noticing problems with the muscles in my legs. So there was something going on there. And so one of the reasons I moved back was because it was just tough being up there alone, basically, and I missed family and friends.
How old were you, sorry, at this point, Sanjay?
21.
21,
22, yeah. That's when I came back home. And we'd had a few people say, why don't you take Sanjay to an ashram in India? They'll cure him there. So then we ended up going to India, and then
what was the diagnosis at that point? Sorry, mate. What was it? Was there a diagnosis or?
Yeah, they said it was something with the muscles. So it's like a muscular dystrophy, mild kind of muscular dystrophy that kicks in later on in life. So yeah, that's what they'd said. And yeah, so we ended up in India, and I think I was asking lots of questions there as to what I was doing there and that kind of thing. And yeah, and just I think people saying the place we were, there's the divinity is here kind of thing in the guru that was there. And I was thinking, yeah, right, come on, what are you guys all sort of on this? That I didn't believe any of that at all. But then the things that happened to me while I was there made me really question. I kind of said, well, if you are who you say you are, then I want to see A, B, and C happen. And I didn't tell anyone. I just had those thoughts. And then he would wave his hand and materialize things, but I would never be able to see it. So I'd sort of say, well, I want to be able to see it. So the next few times that happened, where I was sat, people just moved out of the way, and I had a clear line of sight to see him do it. And I just thought, first time it happened, I thought, yeah, just coincidence. And then it happened a number of times after that, and I thought, I asked for something, and you've just given me that. So I started to believe that he was who he said he was, a divine being. And I thought the next thing I had after that was fear, because I thought, if you are a divine being, God, whatever you want to call it, then I got quite scared, because I thought, what do you do? I think my impression of God was like someone that you fear. It was more kind of like, would be someone who would tell you off or strike you down or that kind of thing. So so I got quite scared at that point. I thought I didn't know how to relate or deal with that. So and then the journey kind of started from there, if you like.
Wow. So what was so at that point we should say that as well, because there's such a wide scope of people probably listening to this. And so what they would describe as your teacher would have in India, they will call them siddhas. These they're meant to be things that happen to either great yogis or people who are born of a very high level of consciousness, if you like. So in India, when you hear these things, it's not uncommon. It's like, oh, some miracles here and there and curing and for sick people and all that. Of course, in the West and mindset, that's like, oh, hang on, right, that this is a little bit too much for me to understand now. But I can certainly relate to that, having heard so many stories about these incredible beings in India that have, you know, siddhas and all these kind of abilities. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And so what you're describing is that this this, if you like, divine being, this being completely in one with the nature, or the true nature of the universe, if you like, as they would call it, he represented divinity to you. And then what that brought up in you was a level of fear, and, you know, well, what is divinity? And so you were going on to say something after that. So
Yeah, so I was thinking, how on earth do I relate to you? You know, what relationship do we have? And I didn't know. And then I think it was a few days later, I had a dream, and me and this and the guru, the being, if you like, were sat around at home having dinner together, and then we went to the pub and we played pool. And then it's kind of like, and then people had told me, you know, if you have dreams like that, then you can't dream of someone. It's almost like someone like that, they come into your dream. So it's like it's a blessing, if you like. But it answered that question. So you treat me like a member of the family, you know, sat around the dinner table, and then treat me like your best friend. You know, we'll go and shoot pool together, kind of thing. So that kind of, I thought, oh, all right, it's like that, is it? Okay. So then it's sort of because that's not how I would have my, you know, I wouldn't say that's how a relation, that's not how I had it in my head that it would be, but it's always been like that. And then it's funny because people there would sort of, people still see the strict side of it, but he put me in touch with people. There was a friend of mine who I know, and he was telling me all the sort of jokey things that would happen, and how he was such, you know, how funny he was, and the tricks he would play on people and stuff. So I've always seen that sort of the childish, the fun, the light side of him, if you like, not the strict disciplinarian side, or the fierce side, if that makes sense. So my relationship has always been on that kind of thing. See me as your friend, because that's how he introduced himself to me, if you like.
and so that's an interesting idea, because there's in the path of bhakti, again, this path of devotion, it talks about different relationships you can have with that ultimate supreme consciousness, that that gosh, how can you even describe that? I've heard in the early Vedas it was just called that, because it was so beyond any kind of description we could give it. That
Yeah.
And so then the way that the path of devotion is said to work is that there's beings that represent, if you like, something we can't understand. So that whatever that is that we can't understand can be connected to through the human mind, through like for a Christian it would be Christ, you know, for a Buddhist, there's different forms of Buddhism. There's some that are more devotional, which is like your Tibetan Buddhism, where they have guru yoga, various things. And then they also have the Zen path, which is more what they will call jnana yoga in the East, you know, in India, which is more about finding whatever that is inside of yourself. But then some of the great jnana yogis, like Nisargadatta Maharaj, who's my favorite, he would say, you know, that the when you look deeply into yourself, you find God, which is the path of jnana or wisdom. Then the path of devotion is, if you look deeply into the nature of God, you find yourself. So all roads lead to the amalgamation of that mystery with our, if you like, our true nature, which is what you're describing. To me, you know, that kind of that devotion and where that leads. And what they also say is that in the path of bhakti, the highest type of relationship you can have with the great mystery is one of friendship. Like it often starts with like a parent archetype, like you're describing. You start off and it's the father or the mother, and the fierce, and a lot of this seems to be as we go through our own darkness, our insecurities, our fears, and those projections. But as those start to break down in this field of unconditional love, this divine essence, what we're left with is, the universe is my friend, you know, this light, this high, this consciousness, whatever it is, it's my closest friend, you know. And in the Gita, that also seems to be the relationship between Arjuna and Krishna. It's one of a level of friendship, but also adoration as well. So please, I've kind of jumped in there, got excited about what you were telling me, Sanjay. Please, continue. So you get to the point where you build this friendship with the archetype of the divine you have within yourself, and what kind of happens next for you?
So I kind of left it at that, if you like, and then the next time we went, I was still thinking of that was like an introduction. I think the next time we went, I was thinking, okay, so I'm here because I want you to help me out, sort of thing. I want, you know, people have said you can heal me, so I'm come for some of that, please. And what happened was, I think I was waiting in line at one of the canteens that they had there, and I fell over. And it was just mum and I at that point, and I kind of ripped my trouser, cut my leg, and everything. And there was a guy there who was standing with me in the queue I met, and he basically just, big guy, strong guy, picked me up and took me back to my room. And I got really, really upset and quite angry as well. I was thinking, you know, I've come here. I think the words I used were, I've come here to this godforsaken place to meet you, and this is what you're doing to me. And so I'm come here for you to help me, and this is what you're doing to me. And I kind of said, well, I'm not interested, you know. I don't want to come and see you. I'm not going to come to any of the prayer sessions. I'm not going to come and sing any songs. You know, forget it. I want to go home. I'm done now. I'm done with this now. So I kind of like, you know, had my tantrum in my room for a day. And then I thought, oh yeah, well, I'm here for a bit and I might as well come out. So I did come back out. And the same guy who helped me out gave me this book. And in this book was a chapter on pain and suffering. And he said, I was reading this and I thought it might be useful for you. And it kind of, that's where things really started to shift for me. So, and it was talking about how those who suffer, rather than God being away from them, they actually have God's grace. So it's God who's there with them. It's you know, he's there. You have to, you know, those laws are the law of, you know, karma and stuff like that. So you have to go through what you have to go through, and God will be there and lessen it for you. And that's when he introduced me to this, you know, the prose thing about footsteps in the sand, where, you know, you kind of, you're looking back on your life. When you meet God, or whatever you want to call it, you're looking back on your life journey, and there's always two sets of footprints in the sand. Apart from in your toughest times, there's only one set of footprints. So you turn and you say, why did you leave me in my time of need? And the response you get is, I didn't leave you. Those footsteps are not yours, they're mine, because I was carrying you. And that just blew me away. So, and I think it was knowing that, you know, the fact that when you get to these places and you meet people like these, you know, really sort of wise, very divine beings, it's not by chance that you meet them. They've called you. It's almost like, and what they would say is, you know, I've been being prepared for this encounter for many lifetimes. So, and if I really believe that then everything, one of the phrases I've been keep coming back to lately is, everything is so divinely orchestrated, and everything happens the way it's meant to happen, when it's meant to happen. So if you believe that, then you think, well, what's the point in worrying and stuff? And what you know, what's the point in getting upset about things? And maybe everything that I'm going through, the so-called suffering, if you like, is because of something that I've done in a past life. And if I don't sort of rebalance the books now, then I'll have to keep coming back until I've repaid it. I've got no idea. But does that really matter? The fact that I am in touch and I'm on this path with a divine being, with this divine guidance, and able to start to see that within myself, it's a huge thing. And none of us know what tomorrow is going to bring. You know, we'll come on to that. There's been some really, really tough times as well. And you kind of, there's a lot of, like you say, the journey of giving things up or surrender and things like that as well. And then all these different feelings that come up in you as well on the path, and it's not an easy one. But if you know you've kind of got this divine being sort of stood by you, who sort of said to me, I'm your best friend, I'm a part of the family, then, and you believe that sort of he's looking out for me, which I know that he is, then I guess with that knowledge you can then be a little bit more confident, or what's the word I'm looking for? As long as you go about your business sort of trying to keep everything, your conscience is clean and that kind of thing, and you sort of check what you're doing with your heart and make sure it feels right, then you've got nothing to worry about in that sense.
I love that. It's and it's such an interesting phenomenon, because what's really big in the West now, as far as I can see, Sanjay, is it's the idea like, oh, I am that, I am that divinity, which is, it's become a little dogmatic, almost like, oh no need for gurus, no need for, and I can understand, because in the Western experience of gurus, there's been loads of dodgy ones, people who've claimed to be gurus, which, as far as I can see, as I've said previously on one of these, a guru isn't just some guy or just some woman who's read a few books or had a spiritual experience. A guru really is someone who can take you the full distance across the ocean, meaning that they have taken that journey themselves. It's said that a true guru is someone who possibly chooses to come here, as opposed to has to karmically. It's like they just come because they believe that the, if you like, the collective vibration needs to be lifted, or that they just want to be in service to people who are ready to raise their consciousness themselves in any way. And it's also seems like a guru can be, they leave some kind of footprint which is eternal. Like, so you have Lao Tzu, you have Christ, that people can still turn to that, whatever they represent, that's left in our collective thought pool, our collective consciousness, they can still turn to that and draw as much power as if they were there. It reminds me, I always think of Star Wars on that bit where Obi-Wan Kenobi goes, strike me down and I'll be more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And it's like, that's really the essence of when these beings, turn up here. Many of the Buddhas, many of the saints, they leave some kind of doorway through which we can journey to reach that deeper knowledge of self, if you like, who we truly are. So it's I kind of want to point out, because I'm aware how many people follow the path of what you could call non-duality, which is gurus aren't needed, it's a waste of time, it's all illusion. But that's not been my experience. I've experienced what Nigza Gadanta, one of the great, non-dualistic masters, really my favorite one, said, where if you look into the nature of divinity for long enough and deep enough, you'll find that your nature is no different to that,
Exactly. Yeah.
So where are you? So you've come to this point, you've kind of read about suffering, you've gone through some of these like challenging times. What's kind of next for you on this journey?
Someone said to me, there's a service organization set up with this, around these teachings. So someone said to me, I think you should get involved. So they gave me a little bit of work to do, and then I kind of got involved with that. So it's just being of service to other people. So whether it be like a coordinator, organizing events, taking care of communications, that sort of thing. And I think I learned a lot more about the teachings. I've not read many books and stuff. I've learned by doing. So, and you get involved, you're organizing things, and in the process you get opportunities to put the teachings into practice, or to learn what they are. So not from a book, but from like real life stuff, experiences. So whether it be you're trying to organize something, thinking, oh gosh, how on earth am I going to get? I need to find X, Y, and Z person, and then X, Y, and Z person turn up. And it's like, oh, how did that happen, kind of thing. And then sort of, yeah, that way, I feel like things help. And sometimes it was, I remember, you just do stuff because it's there to be done. So someone would say, I'd have to write a recommendation for someone to take part in and there was somebody wanted to take part in a human values kind of diploma course over in Thailand, but they needed to get like a letter that was signed by the chairperson, which was me at the time. So I just thought, yeah, no problem. So I met with them, sort of signed the letter, and off it went. And they did this course, and it was really, really powerful for them. And then I met them like, 20 years later on in just a random sort of situation. They're like, you were the one who, made me, set things up for me to go on this course. And it's, I never got a chance to thank you. And, so things kind of come full circle, and it's other little random little things that I keep finding. And I keep trying to look for signs of these teachings. And sometimes they're very much, in your face, you can see them. Other times a little bit more subtle. And I remember this case. Where was I? I was at my cousin's wedding, and we were in the church, and she needed a pen, and I had this really nice Parker pen, really, really smooth. And I thought, I'm going to give her this pen because she needs it, but I know I'm not going to get it back because it's just chaotic. And I kind of thought to myself, it's a pen. Why am I attached to it? So I said, okay, here, have it, knowing that I wouldn't see it again. And I never saw it again. But I thought, that's fine. I thought, it's interesting why I was so attached to the pen. And then about 3 or 4 months later on, I think we'd signed up, like house insurance, car insurance, whatever. And I didn't know at the time. I think mum and dad had signed this policy. And then and you got a free gift, and it arrived in the post, and it was a Parker pen, exactly the same color. It had like a navy blue body and a silver top. So it had come back to me. And I just thought, okay, that's kind of quite interesting. So it's looking for these things in the world, if you like, not just in the spiritual side of things, but it's everywhere if we choose to see it. And I kind of, when you go to India or you go to these ashrams, when you're in that environment, it's very easy to see how everything falls into place and how everything is happening. But when you come back into your normal life back in the UK or wherever you may be, then you kind of think, well, that's the life in India. The UK life or home life is different, but it's not. It's still there if you choose to see it. So
I love that, because that's something a lot of people struggle with. They go traveling or go to spend like long times in meditation, and sometimes it's called after the ecstasy, the laundry. It's like suddenly you're like, I got invited to live at a yoga ashram about 15 years ago or so up in the mountains, place called Nashik, beautiful place, not far from where they have the Kumbh Mela. And it was going to be Ayurvedic food every day, cooked for me. It was going to be, yoga every day, living like a monk, basically, in this beautiful place. And it was so tempting. And helping out as one of the yoga teachers there. And something inside me said, no, this isn't it. Get back into the world, that's where you're going to learn about life, not kind of cooped up in some, basically, I mean, it was rustic, it was shacks, and it was bugs, and there was cobras everywhere in the grass, and all that kind of real kind of rustic, place. But yeah, but something drew me back. There was something that it was almost like, I remember a teacher once saying, someone went to one of the great masters and said, I want a life of this great peace you talk about, this shanti, this absolute blissful peace. But please bless me so I can have this. And the teacher says to this person, okay, I bless you with a lifetime of struggle. And he's like, what? What? Like, what are you doing? And he says, you want this supreme peace, then you have to have the peace, whatever's happening in the world, whatever happening when there's no money in the bank, when, your partner maybe leaves you, when you're sick, can you have the unshakable peace then? And so apparently this guy said, no, actually, I don't think I'm after that peace anymore. Just, forget it. I'm happy with troubles. So that sounds like too much work, So it's kind of, so I really love how you've managed to move out of a very beautiful setting, I imagine, an ashram where, as you say, things are in flow, and then come back into the world and find it there. That for a lot of people, that's no small task, you know.
No, it not, and I think it's weird because I think I found such even though I was struggling with mobility and stuff and getting around, I think I always had a, you know, I still felt, I just felt happy to be alive, if you like, and happy that I'd found something that I, you know, I don't know how to explain it. It just made me feel really good that I had this sort of this. So in a piece, every time I say it in a piece, I just keep thinking Kung Fu Panda. I just love Kung Fu Panda. So again, if I get a chance, I'll talk about the movies side of things.
Please do.
But like, you know, it's just people always just say to me, you know, you're having so many struggles, yet you've always got a smile on your face. And how do you do it? And I kind of thought, well, I don't know. It's sort of like it's almost like something was lit up inside of me, if you like, and that's what was kind of just keeping me going, and just more than anything, just a sense of just gratitude, I guess, of just, you know, just appreciation of everything that was around me, just being able to stop and enjoy things, or enjoy people's company, and actually being present to like conversations like this, or enjoying nature, or whatever it may be, just doing things and just enjoying it. Yeah. I've forgotten what the question was that you asked.
So don't worry about it. I was just so drawn in with this conversation. It's wonderful. I think I'm still excited about the fact that you like Kung Fu Panda. So
I love it. I just think it's so good. Like, yeah, a bit of a spoiler alert, isn't it? The end of it, when he gets to Dragon Scroll in the first one, and it's like, you know, the dragon, the power to be the dragon warrior is just he sees his own reflection. So it's like, you know, it's all within you. So you are that already. So there's nothing, you know, there's yeah, you are it basically, and that's all he needed, kind of thing. And yeah, and the whole inner peace thing, and he's coming to terms with everything and finding himself, you know, dealing with all his background and the memories and the pain and the suffering that he's been through, that's been brought back for him as well, and he deals with it. So
that movie, let me just, when I'm, because I think someone gave me as a present the third one, I think it is. Now, everyone had been telling me when I practice Tai Chi, I think in the third one, he starts practicing Tai Chi. I think it's the second or the third one. Now, it's taken in Tai Chi, I started to notice people would talk about chi flow through the body, and it's like, it's not the chi that's moving, it's my mind. It's my mind that moves the energy. It's my attention and my consciousness. And look, people were saying, no, and that's not what I've heard. And it's like this, am I having a different experience to everyone? Because it's my mind that's moving the chi, not the chi by itself. And then the opening line of Kung Fu Panda, his master says to him, it's your mind that moves the chi when you practice Tai Chi. It's like, oh my God, Kung Fu Panda knows. He knows what everyone else is telling me isn't true. And it was so exciting. And there's so many good lines in there. There was actually, when I taught in schools, there was a line I used to use from Kung Fu Panda. I think it's the first one, where he says, this moment is a gift. That's why we call it a present, or the present, you know?
Yeah.
So sorry, I got carried away with Kung Fu Panda. Please continue.
No. It's great. I mean, there are so many other things. I mean, there's one scene that is, I mean, I love all the superhero movies and all the Marvel things, and there's a particular scene that I really like from, there's from Captain America, where he's I don't know if you've seen it, but he's like this, basically, he's this, you know, weedy kid that wants to, you know, that joins the army kind of thing, and they're looking to select him to be Captain America, and there's a scene where the sergeant is saying, why don't you just let me, you know, this guy, I'm going to snap him, kind of thing, he's so feeble, Why are you saying he's the right person? You know, all the other guys are really tough and strong and everything like that. And the director for the Captain America thing says, yeah, but that guy's a bully. So he goes, okay. So then he throws it. He takes a hand grenade, pulls a pin out, and throws it on the ground, and everybody runs away, apart from this weedy guy who jumps on the hand grenade, covers it up, and says, "Keep away from me! Keep away from me! Keep away from me!" And it's like that feeling, and that's why he was chosen to be Captain America, because of that selflessness, if you like. And yeah, so, and they sort of said, because if you're strong and a bully and you have power, then it'll just reinforce that. Whereas if you're a good person with good values and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and you have the power, you'll do good things with it. So that's why he was chosen to be Captain America.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And
it's a powerful scene. It's such a powerful scene. So
I love that. And yeah, that's quite a thing in superhero movies from what I've seen. Quite often it's the mild-mannered, quiet. Now, I always used to think that's probably because it's like, I consider myself a bit of a nerdy guy. And so I say this great affection, but it tends to be nerdy guys that I imagine draw the comics and write the books. So in a way, I think maybe that they have that wisdom, because they didn't have, possibly they weren't, you know, I think things have changed since computers got really, like, the nerdy guys are now like running the world, but back in the day, in the 80s, they were the bully fodder, and, you know, so that I guess they had a lot of quite intense character development in an early age. So maybe we're able to see those, that actually it was the quality of the heart, you know, that is all powerful. Yeah, beautiful.
but even I know, because again, it just popped into my mind because it's I think coming up soon is Ram Navami, so the Hindu festival dedicated to Lord Rama, and even in there you've got Lord Rama, and he's fighting Ravana, who's like the king of the demons, if you like, and he was extremely. He's pictured there as having 10 heads because he'd mastered the 10 different Vedas or something. So he was very, very wise, very, very intelligent, very, very clever, but he just used his knowledge in the wrong way.
Wow.
So he could, you know, he was as good or as strong or everything as Ram was, but he just was using it in the wrong way. So again, there's all these sort of things they're sort of built into all these sort of stories, aren't they?
Lovely.
Or those kind of festivals or whatever you want to call it. So
at the beginning of my path, mate, I remember we did as part of my Reiki, we did a meditation, and it was we were asked for, if you want a spirit guide, you could say an aspect of our imagination, or, you know, wherever you sit on that. But we were asked for a spirit guide to come forward and give us a gift that will represent our spiritual path. And in this, it would be no surprise, because I was really, like, I still am really, I was big into Gandhi then, watching the film all the time, reading his biographies, you know, really about 21, 22, same age, you know. And in the vision I had, or the imagining, or whatever happened in my Reiki attunement, Gandhi appears, and he's always appeared with a walking stick, and he gave me his walking stick. And I was aware that that walking stick represented wisdom. And but he showed me that I could pick up the walking stick and I could use it to smack other people over the head, or I could use it to just silently support myself through life. And that was, you know, the purpose of some of these, you know, whatever that is. And so I really love that, because I think that's why maybe we have a lot of issues with gurus, because in the West, and I think in the 70s, there was such a big influx of yogi gurus that inevitably, because wherever you get a lot of teachers, you're going to get good human beings and bad human beings, you know, that people are playing it, people who, just as you're describing, maybe have healing abilities, maybe great wisdom, but their heart isn't in that place of compassion, you know. And so what we saw was a lot of these gurus kind of give, if you like, the yoga and the guru disciple lineage are quite a bad name in the West. And then there was an interesting big shift towards Buddhism, towards probably into the 90s, as the Dalai Lama initially became quite popular, and that brought Tibetan Buddhism to the West. And now it's interesting for me, in the last few years, you're hearing a lot of these same stories now about some of these great Buddhist teachers who are abusers of power and sexuality, and you just seem to, it's worth noting, because to the fresh person starting out on the spiritual path, I think it's worth it. I think that the Dalai Lama was saying once, I saw him interviewed, and he said, really, in their tradition, you're meant to study your teacher for, I think it's 10 or 12 years before you accept them as your teacher. And I can say there's some merit in that, because my own teacher, you know, it took me about 12 to 15 years to say, yeah, okay, I've had enough experiences now, I've read enough books, I'm aligned, that I know what, for me, this is the one. You know, up to that, it's a hoping game. So yeah, I love that story and that analogy of is that the Ramayana? Is it Ramayana?
Yeah, the Ramayana. Yeah, Ramayana.
Ramayan. Yeah, Ramayan.
But it's
Wonderful.
but it is that, and I think, you know, I was telling you before about the accident that I had, the car accident as well. So
Yes.
so yeah, it was quite a scary accident on the motorway, and I actually thought that was it. You know, myself, mum, and dad, we were finished. So I kind of I just closed my eyes, and I was just, you know,
Maybe just for anyone listening, Sanjay, just tell us through what so you had what was this accident? So it's on the motorway, wasn't it, as you were driving
yeah.
home from somewhere?
We were going down to visit my sister, and we were driving on the motorway, minding our own business, and a car from the opposite side of the motorway crashed through the central reservation and hit us. So I was going about 60 miles an hour. Obviously, there's nothing you can do, and it hit us. And then because of the impact, it made us swerve, and we ended up going through the hole that it had created in the central reservation. So we were then on the opposite side of the motorway, going into the oncoming traffic on the motorway. And I just thought, this is it. And then we hit another car, which then knocked us back to the central reservation. So we came to a stop there. And I think I didn't have a scratch on me. I think Dad had a little scratch on his leg, and Mum had a little scratch on her neck from the seatbelt, and that was it. Obviously, the car was totally mashed up. But the first impact, I just remember, I just started calling Guru's name, just shouting it out until we came to a standstill. And it wasn't until afterwards that I kind of thought, and this is only like 3-4 years ago, mine, so it's quite recent. And it hit me afterwards that I thought, I've always had this little doubt that, you know, you hear of all these different sages and saints and how all the wonderful experiences or other people have had. Like, you know, you talk to me about some of your experiences. I think how lucky that you've had this experience. Or when you hear that someone, you know, they've been saved from something, I didn't realize it until after it happened, but I've always had a doubt that am I worthy enough to be saved if something like that happened to me? Would God or the divine being or whatever come to my rescue in my time of need? And I think I had doubts because I guess I didn't believe that he would, because, you know, who am I, kind of thing. There's nothing special, you know, nobody, kind of thing. So why would he come out of his way, or why would I cause him so much trouble that he'd come to save me? But obviously he did, because it's amazing that we got out of that. Absolutely amazing. But again, that to me just boosted my faith, if you like, and just made me realize that, you know, yeah, this force, if you like, it is there, and, you know, looking out for us. If it's looking after me, it's looking after everyone. And yeah, so after that, it's just a case of, okay, that's what it is. So you just have to do what you're doing, kind of thing. And I think one of the things that kind of happened to me after that is, it doesn't matter what you do in the world at all. What's interesting, or the most important thing, is the intention with which you do it. So if you've got the right intention and the right motives behind doing what you're doing, it doesn't matter. And that's where the surrender comes into. It's like, okay, so like today, it's like, okay, Graeme's asked me to do this chat. We're going to have a chat. It's going to be great, and I'm just going to speak what comes. and whatever happens as a result of it, it's not with me. I'm leaving it at your feet, not you as in Graeme, but, you know, the divine being, and yours as well, obviously. So, but, you know, so then it's like, okay, so that's clear. So it's not, it's, you know, and if one person listening to this finds something useful and beneficial, great. So, but it's down to that kind of, yeah, intention, if you like.
I totally agree with that. And I see that in meditation. I often say I used to use meditation as a tool of self-hatred. So my meditation was sit down for 20 minutes and figure out why I was such a bad person and why I was so bad at meditating. And that was my meditation technique. So I know I'll sit down, right, this is why I can't calm my mind, because I'm bad karma, a bad person, everyone else. Why am I tired now? I feel tired. No one else gets tired. I'm so unspirited. That was my meditation. And then at some point, I realized that the intention in my meditation was completely off. All the techniques were there, but the intention wasn't about, you're allowed to feel good for 20 minutes. You're allowed to be present. You're allowed to let go of all that self-hatred and not use spirituality as a new tool to feel less than and bad about yourself. So I think, you know, when I teach Tai Chi now, I say that the intention in your practice is probably at least as important as the practice, if not more important. If your intention is to be more attractive, right? I'm going to do Tai Chi because people I want to date are going to find me more attractive. You're not really doing Tai Chi, you're doing dating dressed as Tai Chi. If you're doing it because, you know, one day you'll have loads of followers and you'll be so famous, that might not be the right reason, in so much as if you want a true inner peace and happiness. So you know, my invitation is, do Tai Chi for the purpose of just being happy when you're doing it. You know, it doesn't need to be more than that. Everything else falls into place, you know, from there. So yeah, I guess I've come to a same conclusion, that it's the intention, and the intention that kind of, that gets better with time. I think we get better at being loving, but it's almost like we're learning. We have a true self that is that, and then we have another part of our being which is learning how to express that and connect with it.
But again, that learning how to love and express it, it's easier to love somebody else than it is to love yourself. And I think because one of the favorite sort of the sayings or the mottos that I try to follow is this: love all and serve all. But part of the all includes me. Love. And that there's kind of like I didn't twig that, and I thought, no, yeah. But again, it was on another trip to the ashram, and I'm in a wheelchair now, and to try and avoid, well, I use something called a slide board. So it's just like a bit of plastic, very, very shiny plastic. So I can put it under my bum on the chair and onto the bed. So I can just slide onto the bed instead of having to be lifted. So it just makes it easier for people to move me around. And when I got to the airport, I realized I'd left that slide board at home. And I was so annoyed. But the conversation I had with myself was one of, it's really, really, really nasty. You're kind of like, you fool, you idiot, you plonker, you stupid, and much worse than that. How could you forget this? What are you going to do? Just constant. And you know, so I was really kind of beating myself up quite badly. I wasn't aware that I was doing it until when we got to the ashram. I met a friend there who just happened to be passing. He doesn't normally come that way anyway. And he said, "Oh, what are you doing? How's everything going?" And then I told him I've forgotten this thing. And he goes, "Funny you should mention that. I'm going to see a carpenter this afternoon, and just draw it out what you want and give me some idea of the sizes, and I'll see if he can knock you something up." And that evening he came around with a piece of wood that he'd sanded down. It was nice and smooth, and that did the job. But then he had this. He was asking me afterward. He said, "Well, the conversation you're having with yourself wasn't very loving at all, was it? Why did you do that?" And until he mentioned it, I didn't even realize that was the conversation I was having with myself, if that makes sense. It was just like, Absolutely. It was like automatic in the background kind of thing. And he just shone a light on it, and I thought, ooh. So yeah, and I think it's got a lot better. Sometimes it's still there, but I tend to kind of like, I'm aware of it, and I realize that that's not my true nature. That's just like someone's just pressed play on the cassette kind of thing or whatever, just on the CD. So it's just a conversation, but it's not me kind of thing. So I just kind of put it to one side rather than being hooked by it. But it was the whole kind of learning to love yourself part of things.
How do you put that to, I'm trying to think of someone who might be listening to this thinking, yeah, I recognize that in myself, but do you have a technique? How do you put it to one side? You know, I have my ways, but it'd be interesting to know, how does Sanjay take that voice and put it to one side?
So, yeah, I started to do a little bit of a mindfulness at work, kind of like, but again, I was mainly doing it for other people, and I started to get into it as well. And there's a part of that at the end where you kind of like, you imagine you're kind of present, you imagine your thoughts are going past, like you're on a screen, like you're in a cinema, you're watching your thoughts go past so they don't, and you're trying not to get hooked by them. And I think over time, I'm starting to learn getting a little bit better at not getting hooked by them. So when these things happen, I just realize it's just a thought. It's just a thought. And I think, and because all the teachings that we talk about how we ourselves are divine beings, and we are that. Just like you were saying before, isn't it? Everything, all the love and the beauty, and we see all around us is a reflection of what's inside. So that's the truth of who we are. But then there are other things like ego or whatever else that will kind of like come along that will try to tell you otherwise. So and it's learning not to kind of like, I guess, learning not to pay attention to them. And that, I guess, comes with practice. But I think the first step is knowing what those conversations are about yourself first. So then, like, you know, they're not just automatically running in the background, running the show. They're kind of, you shine a light on them, then you have a choice when you hear that conversation going on. Do I want to listen to this, yes or no? And you have like a split second thing. So and I think for me, everything comes down to, if you're being present, if you're kind of, what's the word? And it's difficult to do, but we're called human beings, but not human doings. But we seem to be spending a lot of time doing stuff. And it's like, if you can be in the being part, and then you've got more chance of being able to catch that thought when it comes, and deciding yay or nay whether you're going to go with it or not. And sometimes you'll go with it and you'll go down the, oh no, I'm not a nice person, blah blah blah. And other times you'll say, not today, and then you just carry on doing what you're doing.
So it's almost like what you're describing is a mindful technique of first noticing it's just a thought, and then being able to disengage from it. And then I also get here that you maybe get used to that, or get better at it with practice, you know, as you start to realize that you're not your thoughts, that actually thoughts are just happening to you, just like the breath, just like your hair growing. And, you know, my nasal hair growing at this point in my life, and my hair's got my shoulders growing, where, you know, that's just happening to me. I have no say in it. So these things just happen. Yeah. Where are you up to? In fact, mate, let me just double check that we have no let me just check we have no questions that I am missing here. Let's have a look. Oh, I hear my voice coming there. No, I think that's great. It's like we can just freestyle on the conversation. Let me just double check.
While you're checking, I'll also remind you that
thank you.
Master Oogway has a stick as well in Kung Fu Panda, like Gandhi.
Oh, amazing! Really? Oh, yeah. I love that. So the sticks are us. Where are you up to now, mate, in your journey? What's happening for you? What is your view of spirituality, and, you know, your own path, your own unique path of life? Anything else you want to share with us on that?
I have no idea where I am.
Great.
I don't know. I don't spend any time thinking about it at all, really, because I guess part of me, when you ask that question, it's the first thing I go to is into comparing myself with somebody else to see where I'm on my journey compared to somebody else. And actually, it does that. So that's a kind of like a pointless conversation, really, because we're all on unique journeys. So I just kind of tried to be a good human being, if you like, and try and be a good person, and try and do what I believe is the right thing. If I can help someone, great. If I can make someone smile or laugh, great. Then that's what I do, and I kind of try and take it day by day and try and just be a little bit better than I was yesterday as a person, if you like.
Beautiful.
So I don't, yeah.
I love that, Sanjay, because it's like my teacher used to say, no one knows where someone's up to on the spiritual path. I remember a close friend of, actually one we both know, but I won't say it because it's a story. And anyway, but she told me once that that she had an uncle who was just really kind, really beautiful hearted person, wasn't religious, wasn't spiritual, just kind, just nice. Well, I'll say just, he was kind and nice. And then shortly after his death, she felt like she was visited by him, and he was surrounded by angels, and she had a sense that he was a very evolved being in this dream, and that what she felt as she had this dream was, it's not even about if you're a spiritual person, whether you meditate or anything like. It's simply the quality of as you're describing, the quality of your heart. Not which organization, what belief you have. It's just the quality of your heart, which I think the ancient Egyptians, that I'm sure they had. My friend Dr. Joe would probably help me because he's really into his Egyptology, but I think it was one of the gods, as you die, that they measure your heart against the weight of a feather, and that decides, basically what is the quality of your heart. Are you light-hearted or whatever, and that is the quality they look at to get into their whatever they believe is heaven or higher realms of consciousness. So I really like that, that we just don't know where anyone's up to, but one of the things that we can look for is kindness and compassion as the real judge, which is what Christ says. Christ says that even a publican can be kind to people who are kind to them, but it takes something really special to show kindness to people you don't agree with, or even who are persecuting you, or to show kindness. That's the real someone who's really within their own divinity, like a Gandhi or Martin Luther King, someone like that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us, mate, before we wrap up here? I've really enjoyed our conversation. I've loved the way it's danced, and I love how you shared about your time with your teacher. I love your view of your positive view and outlook. I love your insights around suffering. I love that how you work with your mind, and I love your not knowing. Like, what a great answer. Where do you think you're at your spiritual path? I've no idea, and it doesn't concern me. And I just, wow, that's such a beautiful thing to carry home for me, and for many people. So, is there anything else you'd like to share or talk about?
I guess a couple of things that popped into my mind, because you mentioned at the start, like I'm an engineer, so my mind I'm very heady, if you like, mind driven in science and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know when it was, about 15 years or so ago, I decided to write a poem. I never written poetry at all, but then it just started to flow, and since then it's been flowing as well. So I look at these things and I think, for me, that is a good indicator as well. So the creative side of me, when that if that's blocked, then I know that I've kind of gone more heady, if you like. But when I'm kind of like, when I'm sort of experiencing love or feeling like I'm in my heart a lot more, then the poetry just flows. So and yeah, I just think again, that's a gift. And I know that's not me, because I read the poems back and I think there is absolutely no way I could have written that at all. So where it's come from, I have no idea. So that there's that kind of finding outlet. So just loving whatever it is that you're doing, whether it be even at work. People say, people talk about going to work as if it's like punishment kind of thing, and I'm just thinking, it's, you spend so much of your time there, you should enjoy it. Otherwise, find something else, because one thing that you realize is that life is actually short. We kind of We go to sleep kind of assuming we're going to wake up the next morning, but there are no guarantees that we are. And when you kind of realize that, that for me, things changed a little bit. It's kind of like, you started to be a little bit more grateful, if you like. And what was the other thing linked to what you were saying before about we're all on our different journeys? I always have this, I don't know how it happens. No, I don't know, but I've always had this image that, before we were born, we kind of were sat up there with the divine creator, whoever, and we're kind of making a list of what we want to experience in this next lifetime. So then we're born, and in that process we then forget everything we've agreed. But what's happened is that whatever we agreed we want to experience, we're placed in a family and in a situation to give us those experiences for us to grow and develop and learn from. And so that's why some people have it easy, some people have it hard, whatever it may be. It's whatever it is that they need to learn from. And sometimes I think we had this conversation before about the people that go through a lot of pain and suffering, and whatever it is that they've gone through. Yes, it's for their own involvement and what it is that they're here to learn from, but it's also to have, it's also to be able to help the people that come after them, because you have that empathy, that understanding. You can help somebody through what they're going through because you've been through it yourself. So so when you actually look at it that way, because I've often thought, is there really such thing as good and bad, really? Or is it just stuff is? It just is the way that it is. And it might be good for you, it might be bad for me, but it's not. Good and bad is just our own label we put on it, because that's how the mind works. And so that's, again, it's all about heady stuff. I think that someone once told me that your mind is a tool. Just like if you're a carpenter, you'd have your hammer and chisel. When you go to the dinner table, do you put your hammer and chisel on the table? No, you don't. You put it away with the rest of your tools. And surely the mind is the same, but for some reason we've given it free rein. We've given it the power that we think that it's the master, but it's not. So it's kind of like using the tools at the right time for the right things. And the mind is a very powerful tool, but it is just that, a tool, not the boss. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff I wanted to say. That just came out.
I could listen all day, mate. I love the uniqueness of this approach, because I think starting with Eckhart Tolle, in the Western culture, an initial stage of the awakening process, it seems to me, is the realization that you're not your mind, you're pure consciousness. And then another dogma surfaces in a lot of people, and for a long period of time after that, it's like, oh, if I'm not my mind is an illusion, it's a seat of my ego, it's bad, it's da. But really the yoga sciences, which I call them sciences, they say actually the mind is your servant. Don't make it your master. Your mind's essential to the path, and it's actually the mind that becomes enlightened, because of course your real nature is already oneness. So it's the mind that's evolving in its capacity to reflect this true nature. So I totally value that, and I think it's really, really important, that we understand as a Western awakening society, that actually the mind is it's a divine gift, and we can use it to bring so much creativity to our lives, to love, to express ourselves. But it's maybe the unconscious mind, a mind that's out of alignment with what you could call divinity, that creates wars and hatred and all that kind of stuff towards ourselves, towards other people. So yeah, they call it, they don't say get rid of your monkey mind, they say tame the monkey mind. That's what spirituality is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. I've really enjoyed seeing you, mate, and I'm glad. I hope someone finds something in us just having a great conversation together and having an amazing catch up. And exactly. I'm so looking forward to doing this again, either live or just me and you having a good old chinwag, mate. It's so great to catch up with you.
It's been great, Graeme. It's been absolutely brilliant. Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Right. I'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. You're back at work today, or have you got the rest of the day off?
I've got the rest of the day off, and the sun is shining, so I think I'm going to go and sit in the garden for a bit.
And maybe watch Disney Plus, a superhero film at some point.
Exactly. Good plan. Good plan. Yeah.
Well, so great to see you, man. And I'll see you
Great
again
stuff.
soon. Thank you for joining me.
No
And
problem. Thank you, Graeme. Take care.
take care, buddy.